Okay, okay, okay. Okay then. In last class, okay, I shown how to download SQL Server. What is the step-by-step installation? Okay, downloading and step-by-step installation of SQL Server. Then, and after installation, how do you know whether SQL Server is installed or not? Okay, then SQL Server is installed or not. How do you know SQL Server is installed? Then what you have to do, just go to run command, services.msc. Go to run services.msc, services.miscellaneous. Okay, then next next one. Here it will show the services in this. Just select one service, like press S key, down S key. Otherwise, go to S. It is services are alphabetical order. So in this, SQL Server is there. SQL Server service is created. SQL Server service is created and it is running. SQL Server service is created and it is running. So it is created and it is running means SQL Server is installed successfully. Okay. So you go and check the services. In services, one service should be created, SQL Server, and that service running. So it is created, it is running means it is running successfully. Okay, next. Okay, now then after this, next you have to install SSMS. You have to install SSMS. Okay, then so you have to install two softwares. One is SQL Server software, another one SSMS software. Okay, now then. So how to download SSMS? This is the link to download. Okay, how to download SSMS? So this is the link. I'll share these links. Okay, now then. So you go to this one. Download SSMS is there. Download SQL Server Management Studio. When you click this, download SQL Server Management Studio. When you click this, download starts. Okay, now after downloading, what you will get? You will get SSMS setup. After downloading, what you will get? You will get what? SSMS setup, like this one. Okay, now after downloading, you'll get SSMS setup. Double click the setup. When you double click this setup, installation begins. You double click this. When you double click this, installation begins. Understood, guys? Then double click this. When you double click, installation starts. Installation begins. Next, how to install? How to install? What the step-by-step installation? So this is installation of SSMS. Step-by-step installation of SSMS. So this is simple. Now let's see this here. Step-by-step installation of SSMS. Okay, this is nothing, boss. Here, nothing to do. Just only okay, na? Then once again. So after this, like when you double click the setup, when you double click SSMS setup, then first you will get this one. So there is a button here, install button. Click the install button. After clicking the install button, then it will be installed. That's nothing to do. Okay, na? Then so here double click the setup. When you double click the setup, so it opens. There is an install button. Click the install button. When you click the install button, so installation will be completed. Nothing. Okay, na? That's all. So this is how to download SSMS, how to install SSMS. Okay, that. So I'll share these 4 links: SQL Server download, okay, SQL Server step-by-step installation, SSMS download, SSMS step-by-step installation. I'm sharing these 4 links. You save these links in your system and just go through this. Okay, then. Okay, na? I shared these 4 links. You just go to these links. Okay, then I shared these 4 links. You save these 4 links in your system and use these links to download to install. Okay, guys. Now, okay. Next, suppose here. Okay, then how to connect to SQL server? Okay, na? Next, how to connect to SQL server? How to connect? How to connect to SQL server? Okay, na? How to connect? To connect to SQL server. Okay, to connect to SQL server. So open SSMS to connect to SQL server. Open SSMS and enter following details. Enter the following details. To connect to SQL server, open SSMS and enter the following details. Like, let's see. So what you have to open? You have to open SQL server. How to open SQL server? So here there is a search. Okay, na? Then so go to search. So type what? SQL. Then it will show the list of softwares. Okay, na? SQL. If you type SQL, then it will show the softwares, SQL softwares. So in this Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio is there. Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, that is there. Okay, double click this. Just click this. When you click this, it opens. SQL Server Management Studio. Click this one. So when you click this, SQL Server Management Studio opens. Okay, then Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Just first time it takes some 1 or 2 minutes. So next time onwards, what? Like next time in the sense first time you open this, it takes time. Okay, so then after opening this, what it is, it will ask. Okay, then so to connect to the SQL server, you have to submit this one. What is server type? What is the server name? What is the authentication? What is the login? What is the password? Server type, server name, authentication, login, password. Okay, na? So like, let's see here, server type. Okay, server type. What is the server type? Server type is database engine. Okay, na? Server type is database engine. Server name. Server name means, so where SQL Server software is installed, that computer name. Server name means computer name. Which computer name? Where SQL Server software is installed. SQL Server software is installed in my laptop. Server name means my laptop name. SQL Server installed in your laptop. Server name means your laptop name. How to find out the laptop name? How to find out the computer name? So this is the computer. This is a computer. select this, right click, go to properties. This is a computer. This icon represents computer. Right click, go to properties. So when you go to properties, then it is showing computer name. You see this. In my system, computer name is Win Control F9B3VH5, something like this. Win Control F9B3VH5. So that is called computer name. Okay, na? That. So this is called what? Computer name. Name of the computer. How to find out the computer name? So just go to what? PC, right click, go to properties. When you go to properties, there you can find out the computer name. Okay, na? That. Now, so that computer name you have to type it. So this is computer name. Okay, na? Computer name. After typing the computer name, / SQL Server instance name. Okay, na? When you install, after installation of SQL Server, one instance is created. After installing SQL Server, one instance is created. Okay, na? So in yesterday's class, I shown that. So that instance name, SQL Express. How to find out the instance name? How to find out this instance name? Like just now I shown, na? Just now I shown services.msc. Services.msc. Then in this what? In this SQL. See that SQL Server in brackets it is showing instance name. SQL Server brackets, in brackets it is showing instance name. What the instance name here? SQL Express. Instance name is SQL Express. Okay, then next one. Server type is database engine. Server name is computer name, and SQL Server instance name. Next one. What the next one is? Next one is authentication. Okay, next one is authentication. Authentication can be either Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication. Authentication can be two types. Authentications are two types. One is Windows authentication, otherwise SQL Server authentication. If you select Windows authentication, you don't need to provide username and password, directly can connect. If it is Windows authentication, you can directly connect to SQL Server. If it is SQL Server authentication, you have to provide login and password. Windows authentication means you don't need to provide login and password, directly you can connect to the SQL Server. SQL Server authentication means you have to provide the login and password. If you want more security, use SQL Server authentication. If you don't want security, use what? Windows authentication. Okay, then. So suppose here I use SQL Server authentication. Okay, na? Then it will ask login and password. So I select what? SQL Server authentication. SQL Server authentication. Next one, login. What the login? Login. So login is what? Suppose here login is SA. Login is SA. SA. What is SA means? SA means system admin. SA stands for system admin. And this is automatically created after installation of SQL Server. This is automatically created after installation of SQL Server. SA is created automatically. And what is the password is? Password is what? Password is, okay. What the password is? Password is set at the time of installation. Password is set at the time of installation. So if you want, like yesterday I've shown that. Yesterday I mentioned also, enter the password, but remember the password because we use that password. Enter the password, but remember the password. Yesterday's class I've shown that, like we enter password. Okay, na? Then at the time of installing SQL Server, we entered the password. So that password we have to enter. Suppose in my system, at the time of installation, I entered the password as what? I entered the password as 123. Okay, now you also entered some simple password. Don't enter complex passwords. Enter simple password. Okay, I entered the password as 123. Okay, that here you see this when installation starts. Okay, now after installation starts, then what I said. So when you double click the like what that installation begins, first you select custom. After selecting custom, okay, after selecting custom, next one select what, choose installation. In installation, choose new SQL Server standalone installation. Okay, then select new SQL Server standalone installation. Then after this, okay, after this, next specify the edition. Okay, na? So what the edition is, developer edition. Accept the license, and after accepting the license, next one, Microsoft updates. No, I don't want any updates, so no need to check. Install rules. Okay, na? Okay, this is next. Feature selection. Select what database engine. Select database engine. Okay, like automatically that's selected. Actually, maximum you leave it to the default only. Instance configuration. Here you enter the instance name. So otherwise, leave it to the default only. That instance name you have to use it. Okay, na? That. So next, like here what? Here you enter the password. You enter the password. Whatever the password you enter here, that password we use it here. That whatever the password you enter, that password we use it here. Okay, na? So enter simple password. So I entered the password is 123. So then just enter that password. That's all. Understood, guys? Okay. So after this, now click connect. Understood now? So server type is database engine. Server name is this one slash. This is computer name slash instance name. Authentication, SQL Server authentication. Login is SA. Password is entered at the time of installation. That's all. Next, after this, now you connect. After this, you connect. Okay, connect. So you are connected to SQL Server. A connection is established between you and SQL Server. Okay, you are connected to SQL Server. And after you connect to the SQL Server, okay, after you connect to the SQL Server, then now what it is showing. So what is this is called Object Explorer. One window is shown here. What this window is Object Explorer. Okay, Object Explorer. And in this, there is a call. What there is a call. So it is showing the list, some folders, something like folders, databases. Okay, databases, some security like this. It is showing some folders. Okay, expand. See, it is showing some folders, databases, security, server objects, replication, polybase management, etc. But here, like expand this databases. If you expand the databases, then it is showing the list of databases. If you expand the databases, it is showing the list of databases created. What are the databases there in the system? So in my system, there are 5 databases are there. Okay, na? In my system, there are 5 databases. One is DB 7 p.m., DB 8 a.m., DB 8 p.m. There are 5 databases. This is HRDB, this is SalesDB. Okay, so there are 5 databases are there in my system. Okay, na? Then so the server is managing how many databases means 5 databases. Okay, so one server can manage multiple databases. Okay, na? So like here only 5 databases. If you go to real time projects, real time, so there may be hundreds of databases exist. Maybe some project 400 databases are there. Microsoft server, there contains what 1500 databases. Okay, na? So like there you come across in real time number of databases. Okay, now so now what I want to do is, so I want to I don't want to use any of this database because they're all created for some other purpose. I want to create a separate database for this class, and every day I want to use the database. Understood, guys? I don't want to use these databases, but I want to create a separate database. So if you want to work with this database, select the database, right click, new query. Okay, now select the database, right click, new query. So that if you want to work with any database, first you need to open the database. To work with the database, first open the database. How to open the database? So select the database, right click, new query. When you select new query, one query window opens. In that query window, so you can write the commands. Okay, then one query window opens. In that query window, you can write the commands. Then so this is called query window. Here query window, you write the commands, like whatever the database commands are there, you write that commands. After writing the commands, there is a execute button. Click the execute button. When you click the execute button, commands are executed. Write this command, click this execute button. When you click the execute button, commands are executed. Okay, na? And all these commands are executed on which database? Which database you open? DB7PM is open. Okay, not DB7PM. So I want to work with DB8PM. DB8PM. Select the database, right click, new query. So DB8PM is open. So here write the command, execute the commands. When you execute the command, these commands are executed on DB8PM. So if you want to work with any database, first to open the database, then execute the commands. Okay, that's all. Understood, guys? Then connecting to SQL server. Okay, to connect to SQL server, open SSMS. After opening SSMS, type this. When you type all this, so you are connected to SQL server. Okay, but I don't want to use these databases. I want to create a separate database for this class. So if it is okay, then I'll go to the next step, creating database. If you say this is okay, everything is okay, then I'll go to the next step, that is creating the database. Is it okay? Okay then. Okay then. So now select the database, right click, select new database. Select the database, right click, select a new database. When you select new database, then what happens? Select database, right click, select new database. Then, so if you want to create a new database, okay, then. So like what, one second. So if you want to create a new database, select the database, right click, select a new database. So when you select new database, then see what it is asking, database name. Database name. You have to enter the database name. So what the database name is? DB, okay. So DB6PM. So I given the database name DB6PM. Click OK. Click OK. So very simple. Creating database in SQL Server is very simple. Database name 6PM. Click OK. So database is created. A new database is created. Okay, na? A new database is created. Okay, then. So just simply say OK. If you say OK, a new database is created. So OK, say OK. Suppose one database is created, DB6PM. You want to work with this database, select the database, right click, new query, then work with the database. That's all, very simple. So creating database is very, very simple in SQL Server. Okay, na? Then. So, but I'm deleting this because I'll again I'll show that. Okay, na? So like But thing is, creating database is very simple. But what one must know, so while creating the database, what happens? When you create the database internally, what happens? When you create the database internally, what happens? Okay. Na? So when you create the database internally, what happens is, so let's see, like when you say new database, then when you say new database is created, DB, what 9 a.m., DB 9 a.m. Okay, na? Database is created. And after creating the database, then what happens is, okay, na? When you create the database internally, what happens is two files are created. When you create the database, what happens is two files are created. One file is called data file. One file is called data file. Another file is called log file. Okay. When you create database, two files are created, data file and log file. What is data file stores? The data file stored data. Whatever the data you store it in database, finally where the data stored? The data stored in this data file. Databases stores data now. So where the data stored? The data will be stored in data file. And log file stores operations. Whatever the operations you execute, whatever the commands you execute on database, all that commands are recorded in log file. So data file stores the data, log file stores commands. The commands you execute on database, all that commands are recorded in log file. Okay, that's all. So database is created with two files, data file and log file. Data file stores data, log file stores operations. Okay, what the data file size is 8 MB. The data file size is 8 MB and log file size is also 8 MB. Data file size is 8 MB, log file size is also 8 MB. Okay, initial size is 8 MB. Suppose if this even it's not compulsory that 8 MB. So default is 8 MB. If you want, you can set the size also. You can increase this to 100 MB, 1024, 1 GB. Okay. So default is 8 MB. It's not compulsory that 8 MB. Whatever value you want to set, you can set according to the requirements. Okay. Na? Then next one, log file is also 8 MB. Okay. Na? And auto growth is 64 MB. What is the meaning? If 8 MB is full, the size is automatically increased by 64 MB. Suppose if 8 MB is full, data file 8 MB is full, you keep on insert the data. Na? When you keep on insert the data into database, then suppose this 8 MB is full. When 8 MB is full, the size will be automatically increased by 64 MB. Log file is also 8 MB is full, the size is automatically increased by 64 MB. Even if you want, you can set it by your own values also. You can set your own value. Like here, there is a button here. Click this button. You can set how many bytes you want to increase, not 64. I want to increase by 100 MB. So here type 100 MB. Okay. Na? So like otherwise you can say percentage also. Okay. Na? Then. So, and this is data file path. I'll write this. I'll write everything in the notes. So then this is the data file path. This is the log file path where it is stored. Okay. Na? So you want to copy this database to pen drive. So DB8M, you created the database. You want to copy the database to the pen drive. To copy this database to the pen drive, copy these two files to the pen drive. Okay. Na? Then, so you want to copy this database to the pen drive. So just copy these two files to the pen drive. If you copy these two files to the pen drive, so you can copy the database. You copied the database to the pen drive. So database means nothing but these two files only. But sir, suppose if I open this data file, can I see the data? If I open the log file, can I see the operations? No. No. Sir, this is not for reading purpose. You cannot read. Sir, if you open the data file and if you read the data, there is no security in SQL server. Okay, na? Then. Okay, na? So you can't read. So this is for, okay. Then if you want to access the data, then compulsory what you have to connect to SQL server, submit the commands. You can access the data only through commands only. So you cannot open the data file and you can see the data. Okay, then. So they're only for, not for reading purpose, they're for storing the data. Okay, then. Now, next. Okay, then. That's, I like it. I'll add this to the notes. Okay, then I'll add it to the notes. Okay, then. Now let me write this. What is this? Is creating. Okay, creating database in SQL server. Creating database in SQL server. To create database, to create new database in SQL server. Okay, then. So to create new database in SQL server, like what? Okay, na? So in Object Explorer, to create new database in SQL server, in Object Explorer, select databases, right click, select new database. Okay, na? In Object Explorer, select databases, right click, select databases, right click, select new database. Select new database. When you select new database, immediately what happens is a new database wizard opens. Okay, na? A new, that opens what? New database wizard. Okay, so in the new database wizard, so enter database name. Okay, na? So suppose DB 6 p.m. Okay, enter the database name DB 6 p.m. Next one. After this, simply say click OK. So enter database name, click OK. So enter the database name, click OK. Okay, na? Then when you click OK, then what happens is, so simply click OK. So a new database is created. A database is created with following two files. A database is created with following two files. One file is data file, another file is log file. What the data file extension is? MDF. Log file extension is LDF. MDF stands for master data file. LDF stands for log data file. So MDF stands for master data file. LDF stands for log data file. Okay, na? Then. So like what is the data file? Okay, data file stores what? Data file stores data, and log file stores operations. Okay, na? Data file stores the data, log file stores what? Operations. And here, see this: file name, file type, initial size. Okay, na? Then initial size. Next one, auto growth. Next one, art. Okay, so what is the name? Data file name is db6pm.mdf. What is the data file name is? db6pm.mdf. What is the type is? Data file. Initial size is 8 MB. Auto growth is 64 MB. What is the path? Path is this. This is the path. Default path is this, but it's not compulsory that it should be saved in the same path. You create your own folder. In that folder, you save it. Okay, now you create your own folder. In that folder, you save it. Okay, that. So next one. What is the next one? db6pm_log. So this is log file. Okay, So what the file name is? db6pm underscore log, db6pm underscore log dot ldf. This is db6pm dot mdf. This is db6pm underscore log dot ldf, log file. Initial size is 8 MB. Auto growth is also 64 MB. What is the path? Same path. So what that is? C program files, Microsoft SQL Server, C program files. Okay, na? Microsoft SQL Server, MSSQL 14.SQL Express, MSSQL data. So in this folder, two files are created. This is the path. So like in this folder, okay, in this folder, data folder, two files are created. One file name is db6pm.mdf. Another file name is db6pm underscore log.ldf. Okay, then if you want, you can go to this path and find out. These two files will be there. So later you want to copy the two files to the pen drive, then go to this path. Go to this path. In that path, you can find it. Okay, now that's all. So this is about what creating. Okay, now sir, sometimes what not to. I want multiple. You can add also. You can add data files. One more data file is added. Add data files. Add log files. So if you want log file, select log file. Okay. So by default, it's created with one data file, one log file. Later, if you want to add data file, you can add. Later, if you want to add data file, you can add. Okay. Yeah. So tell me why you want to add. This is also one question asked in interviews. By default, it's created with one data file, one log file. Why you want to add? Why you need some extra data files? One is enough now, because anyway, if 8 MB is full, automatically the size increases by 64 MB. Then, why we need another data file? Because anyway, if 8 MB is full, the size is increased by 64 MB. Then why we need extra data files? Because usually what you say extra data files means like what said, size is not enough. Okay, na? You want more. But here automatically size is increased by 64 MB. Then why we need extra data files? Answer is simple. What is this is, sir, initially 8 MB bus, 8 MB is full, increased by 64 MB. Again 64 MB is full, again increased by 64 MB. Again 64 MB is full, again increased by 64 MB. Keep on 64 MB, 64 MB, 64 MB. Suppose assume C drive is also full. Assume C drive is also full. Okay, na? So that is keep on increased by 64 MB. Suppose assume C drive is also full. When C drive is also full, then you'll get a problem. When drive is also full, when file is full, it is okay, increased by 64 MB. But drive is also full. When drive is also full, then what is the solution is? Then so add one data file, save it in D drive. Save this in D drive, not C drive. All this is saved in what? Save it in E drive something. So in my system, there is a E drive in Naresh folder is there. Save this in E drive Naresh folder. That's all. So this is why he is given add option. So when file size, initial size is full, it is increased by 64 MB. Keep on increased by 64 MB. If drive is also full, then create one data file, store it in separate drive, not in the same drive. Okay, na? That's it. This is where it is useful. Okay, then that's it. Okay, then. So click OK. That's it. A new database is created with name db6pm. Sir, okay now? Then. Okay, by mistake I given. Okay, once again, I'm deleting this because it's a new one, no problem. Even if you delete also, no problem. So DB 6 p.m. DB 6 p.m. Okay. DB 6 p.m. Okay, now then next. Okay, click OK. Okay, then okay, that's so this is about creating database bus. I think you understood this. Okay, then now to work with the database, open the database by selecting new query. Database opens. What is the next one, sir? Okay, what is ready? Server is ready. Okay, now SQL server is ready. Okay, then so SQL server is ready. This server is ready. Inside the server, what is ready? So you install SQL server, and using SQL server software, I created one database. Using SQL server software. What the database I created? DB 6 p.m. Okay, na? Okay, then. Next, I want to work with this SQL server. Sorry, I want to work with this database. Okay, na? So this is user. User means like me. I am. So user, like I want to work with this SQL server. Then what I'm using a tool, SSMS tool. I'm using SSMS tool. So using SSMS tool, I connected to SQL server. I created the database. Connected to SQL server, created the database. Okay, na? That. But in diagram, I'm showing two. SSMS separate, SQL server is separate. But in my system, SQL server and SSMS are there in the same system. But in the real time, SQL server will be there in separate system. SSMS will be there in separate system. So the data file and log files are created in server system. Okay, na? Not in the client system. Okay, then. So, okay, then. Now you connected to SQL server. After you connect to the SQL server, you want to work with the database. You want to work with the database. What do you want? You want to store, update, delete like this. But to work with the database, what we need to do is, so we need to communicate with SQL server. Anything you want to do it in database bus, you have to talk to SQL server. Okay, na? Anything you want to do it on database, you need to talk to the SQL server. Suppose, for example, you are staying in some rented building. Okay, na? Then you want to make any changes to building. So can you make the changes? No, you need to take permissions from the owner. Without talking to owner, you cannot do any modifications on that building. Yes or no? And similarly, if you want to do any operations on database, you need to talk to SQL server, because who is the owner of this database? Who is managing this database? SQL server is managing. So if you want to do anything on database, first you need to talk to the SQL server. You need to communicate with SQL server. Once database is created, boss, for day-to-day activities, you need to communicate with SQL server. But to communicate with SQL server, then how to communicate? See, another best example is from ATM, you connect it to bank server. Using insert the card, enter the PIN number, you connect it to bank server. After you connect to the bank server, it will ask which language you want to use for communication. Yes or no? The machine will ask you which language you want to use for communication. You select Telugu, Hindi, English, depends on your convenience. Okay, na? So depends on your convenience. So But here, like their option is like okay, na? There you got option. Either you can choose Hindi, English, Telugu, like that. But here you don't have option. So you have to communicate with SQL server only with one language, because SQL server understands only one language. What is that language SQL server understands? Okay, what is that language SQL server understands? SQL language. Okay, na? In ATM you got options, choice is yours, but here choice is not your choice, is SQL server. What the SQL server, what language SQL server understands? It understands only one language. What that language is? SQL language. So if you want to talk to SQL server, then compulsory you have to use this language, SQL language. Understood, guys? Then, so what the next one is? So what the next one is? SQL. Okay, then. So database is ready, boss. After database is ready, next I want to work with the database. So then I need to communicate with SQL server. So to store the data, to update the data, to delete the data. So I need to talk to the SQL server. To talk to SQL server, I need a language called SQL language. Okay, then. Clear? So what is SQL stands for? Okay, now SQL stands for structured query language. Okay, SQL stands for structured query language, but here it is actually TSQL. SQL, TSQL same, but here it is called TSQL. What is T stands for? T stands for transact SQL. So T stands for transact SQL. Okay, na? So TSQL. What is TSQL? TSQL stands for transact SQL. SQL, TSQL same, but name he has given TSQL. So SQL stands for structured query language. And what this is? Language used for communication. Okay, now who communicates with whom? User. User communicates with SQL server. Okay, now for any communication, if two persons wants to communicate, they need a language. Like how I am communicating with you by using English language. Similarly, if user wants to communicate with SQL server, needs a language, SQL language. But how user communicates with the SQL server by using SQL? How? By sending commands. He communicates with SQL server by sending commands to SQL server. For storing one command, for updating one command, for deleting one command. So for any operations on database, you send the commands to SQL server. The commands are called queries. Whatever commands users submit to SQL server, the commands are called queries. Okay, na? User sends commands, boss. What for their commands? For storing, for updating, for deleting, for reading the data, he submit commands to SQL server. Whatever the commands he submit to SQL server, that commands are called queries. Okay, then. So SQL language, like SQL language comes with commands. This language comes with commands. Okay, that commands we'll be learning in this, throughout this course we'll be learning that commands. Understood, guys? Then now, okay, and we'll see this in the next class. This SQL commands, we'll see that in the next class. Okay, now, but the thing is, okay, then, so next class is not tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm out of station. Okay, now I won't be, I can't take class tomorrow, only this Saturday. But next Saturday onwards class will be there. So this is Monday to Saturday. Next week onwards it will be there. Only this Saturday I can't take. Okay,